recording this so everyone know. Oh Jesus, I'm clicking at bits to 1 million people now. Okay, so I am recording this. Okay, we'll join this. Mute all. Mute all. Everybody mute. So only I am gonna talk. Show myself. There you go. So let me start this. My name is Bernardo, Mr. Teo. I organized this. Hello. Oh, wow. Famous people in here as well. Look at that. So first thing, this is 12 days of fountain pens. So this idea started with a chat between me and Roy. We're thinking on doing something, and I said, why don't we do 12 days of fountain pens, like 12 days of Christmas? And he thought it was really interesting, and I said, okay, I'm gonna do that. And I started, I kicked off and started talking to people, and I started to see who will want to, to talk. Roy said he was going to talk, and of course he's going to talk about Mont Blanc because he's Mont Blanc specialist. Okay, Dennis is having a problem with the link. Oh dear God. Oh goodness me. So, and with that, talk to people, and the great Robert also, when I invited him to talk, he said that, sorry, I can't, but he sent us a few bottles of this ink, which is gonna be released here. So first release is for us. The Americans are going to be upset because this are only to be shipped to the UK. So I'm sorry, but the only people who are gonna have this wonderful bottles are people in the UK. Not even Australians. Haha. So I have 3 bottles to be given away every day from 12 days of fountain pen. All you need to know is to send an email. All you need to do is to send an email to the email I'm gonna post on chat. You have until the end of the event of today. You have until 10 to 10 because I am going to do the draw with you guys here. So it's going to be fair and square. Everyone know. You guys will know how many people entered and who won. So, okay, let me. Okay, chat. Where do you send the email, Andrea? Because you don't know the email. You need to send the email to the email I'm going to tell you now, which is 12 days of fountain pens.
Alexa, turn on ceiling.
Alexa, mute. "12 days of fountain pens at demet.io." So, okay, boom. You send an email to this email, just one email. If you send 2 emails, you're out. So 1 email per person. That's it. You can write anything you want in the email. Please write in the subject, Robert Oster Citrus or Citrus Ink. I'm putting everyone on mute. Everyone that joins, I put on mute, but too many people joining. So that's 11 more people in the room, in the waiting room. So, okay. Again, admit all. Okay. There are. And mute all again. Okay. So again, please send an email to this email that's in there. I'm going to remind everyone when there's 10 minutes to the deadline. So people that, that join us late will be able to join the draw as well. There is another 2 gifts. So there's this wonderful Lalex pen. It's a vintage Italian pen made by the same people that make Monte Grappa. It's a kind gift from Steph from Ebonite Pens. The wonderful Dennis Hum, I don't know if he's here already or not, but he gave us this. Oh, stop sending me messages. This wonderful, wonderful pen, so I can give away to you guys. And it's a medium nib. It's a block nib, so you can have whatever nib you want. Okay, I'll mute my phone. Mute. Right, without further ado, I'm gonna let Roy talk. And you know how the Zoom works. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand. There's a button that says raise your hand down the screen on the reactions. You can raise your hand. There's the raise hand button, and then I will allow you to speak. Otherwise, everyone is going to be talking on top of other people, and that's not nice. Hey, that Scribble isn't here now. Right. Okay. Roy, you can unmute now yourself.
Perfect. There we go. Thank you, Bernardo. Well, this is incredible. I thought everyone would be watching I'm a Celebrity or the Man U game or something. So I kind of thought I'd just sit here and me and Bernardo would have a chat, and then at about 10 o'clock we call it a day. But no, it's brilliant. There's lots of well, not faces that I recognise, lots of names I recognise. The lovely thing about things like this is that it means that we can meet all sorts of people that we talk to on the group, and we chat to, but we very rarely see. And it's the same for me. There are lots of names that I recognise there as customers, but now they actually get to see me in person. I can't just hide behind my email or my WhatsApp screen. But anyway, yeah. So I'll shut up about random stuff.
Just one final thing. Can everyone see Roy as the main screen? Yeah, I can see your faces. Okay, brilliant. Right. Sorry, Roy. Go on.
Lucky you with me on the screen. But anyway, yeah. I mean, when I first spoke to Bernardo about this, obviously my specialism is Mont Blanc. I don't claim to be the person that knows the most about Mont Blanc, and I see plenty of names up there that are very, very knowledgeable. But my angle is that I run eyes odds and I deal with thousands of Mont Blanc pens a year. So if anything, I just get to see a huge number of them, and that's everything from vintage stuff through to 149 through to very, very rare limited editions. And we just thought it would be a good opportunity to maybe answer some of, I like it, I never imagine Roy's having an English accent. It's very true. You're not the first person to say that, Jeremy. I can put a Dutch accent on if you want for the next 50 minutes. But yeah, I thought it would be a useful opportunity to maybe dispel some of the myths, to help some people maybe understand more about why it's such a successful brand, and to help answer those questions that really often don't get answered, or you see so many conflicting opinions. So when I sat down and thought about kind of part of what was going to be said tonight, it really struck me. Mont Blanc is one of those brands where you get huge numbers of fans, but you get so many people that also are kind of down on it as a brand and the pens. And that's for a multitude of reasons. And it kind of gave me a similar idea, and it's completely random, but when Manchester United used to win everything, people hated Manchester United because they won everything, because that's who they were and they won it and people got bored and everything. But But the reality is they were sensational. And sometimes that element gets lost because people, oh God, Man United have won again. They've won again. They might not be now, but they used to. And it's a bit like that with Mont Blanc. They're such a super successful brand in as much as if you talk to the average person in the street, someone who knows nothing about pens, they've probably heard the name Mont Blanc. Now, that might not be simply to do with pens. It might be that they've got the aftershave, or they've seen a briefcase, or they've got a notebook or whatever. But it's such a recognizable brand. And I think sometimes these kind of super brands get unfairly targeted by people because they are so successful. And it's really important to remember that although they are huge, and under Richemont, they've become almost a bit of a corporate monster in a way, at the very heart of it is a company that does make fantastic pens, and it offers a service that very, very few pen brands can compete with. And that's not me saying they're the best and you mustn't consider any others, because as we all know, the last probably 5 years has seen the world of writing instruments explode, really. You know, you get new brands appearing all the time, wonderful colors, wonderful variations, new filling systems, new ideas, all sorts of wonderful things. But at the same time, you have this brand that remains there, and it has models that have been around for 50, 60, 70 years, and yet they're still the one that people ogle on Google, and they sit there and think, when I get my bonus, that's what I want. And it's amazing that a brand can have that power. It really is. But anyway, to give you a little bit of an introduction, most of you may well know this, so if I bore some of you with the kind of intro, apologies, but for others, they may not have seen some of this. So Mont Blanc was started at the very beginning of the 1900s, really, but it wasn't until kind of the teens and the 20s that really things properly got going. A lot of the pre-war pens really now are, I mean, they are hugely sought after, and so they should be, but as part of the offering, it's very, very small. So we'll skip on slightly to post-war, because for most people, that's where we're going to find the interest. Now, in 1952, a legend was born, the Mont Blanc 149. Most people just know it as the 149, and it's the pen. This isn't a 50s one, this is a 60s one, but that is the pen that most people, if you say Mont Blanc, will aspire to. That's it. It's the 149. They don't necessarily, unless they're big pen fans, they don't necessarily know why. It's the 149. That's it. 3 numbers, done. 149. And the post-war boom, it wasn't this kind of massive corporate company. They really made pens that, without sounding harsh, they were extremely reliable, they were extremely well made, and you started to see this initial kind of creation of a brand that would become the worldwide beast that it is. But in the grand scheme of things, it remained relatively quiet, because I suppose it's a kind of an internet generation type of thing, but the 50s pens was where it was really born. The 149s of the 50s are renowned, as some of you may well know, because they're made essentially entirely different from the 60s onwards. They're crafted from celluloid rather than resin, and unlike on, get it on the screen, unlike on this one where you have the 3 gold bands and the 2 either side, on the 50s pens, they're sterling silver. So if you ever happen to trundle through eBay and you're looking at 149s and you think you found a bargain and you see 2 little silver gleaming rings, you know you found a 50s pen, and they are exceptional. I would have had one with us tonight, but I had one in and it's already gone because they just don't hang about, and they have an exceptional price tag to go with it. If you consider that a new 149 is approximately £700, a good celluloid pen will be anywhere from 1,000 at the bottom end to 2.5, 3 for an unused one. About a year ago, I got a call from a chap who had inherited his family's stationery shop in Essex, and it had been shut for a long, long time. And as he was going through it, he found a Mont Blanc 149, and it was a 50s pen, and it had never even come out of its box. It was still as new. Everything was new about it. The paperwork was there, and it was an incredible find and a real beauty. But anyway, So we head on, the 50s is where it all really began, the Mont Blanc that we know today. And we move on up 60s, 70s, 80s, the 149 still retains its flagship status and other models are added, which we'll come on to in a little bit. But really where it started to get going and really where you see what we know now is the 90s onwards. Under Dunhill ownership in kind of 70s, they cut out the lower end pens and they started to channel the ranges that we see. And when Richemont took it on, that's it. They understood the power of the brand. They understood that Mont Blanc wasn't just a pen that someone who was interested in pens would use. It was something that people would aspire to. It was something that, and it's a kind of cliche thing from the 90s, but someone with a briefcase and an early mobile phone, that's what they wanted. They wanted that snow cap. They wanted it to go with their notebook and they wanted it, that's what it was. And then as you carry on, late 90s, early 2000s, that's when it really starts. And I think that's maybe the period where some people started seeing Mont Blanc in a different way. Before, it almost felt like a kind of, a bit like a family company. It clearly wasn't, but it felt like it because it was a little bit under the radar. But then when it became a symbol, it became something that people aspired to. I think for a lot of people, they saw it change. And in my opinion, wrongly so. Just because a company has become bigger and produced a number of different ranges and changed in many ways, it doesn't mean that it's lost its ethos. The early 2000s saw brand ranges such as the Star Walker come in, and we'll have a little look at those in a bit. With the Meisterstück range still at the very heart, we had the Bohems, which again I'll show you in a bit, and various other limited editions. You have to look at the 90s really as a time of when the limited edition idea came in. You had the writers' editions, you had the Patron of Arts, you had skeleton pens, and it really, it would take hours and hours. So I'm going to try and condense as much as I can without rambling too much. But that's really when we see it become what it is. And so we fast forward to 2020, and I'd say that people are more polarized than ever in their opinion of Mont Blanc. We deal with people all over the world, and we have customers that absolutely adore Mont Blanc. We have super collectors, people that buy artisan pieces where there's only one made, there's 8 made, there's 88 made, and they're huge collectors of Mont Blanc. And then you have others, and in fact I had a call from someone earlier today who's bought pens for many years, bought a lot of Pelicans, Graf von Faber-Castell, and a lot of other brands, and he rang me and he said, you've got to convince me, you've got to tell me why, because all I hear is that they're overpriced. Why do I need it? Why do I need a Mont Blanc? And I said, look, you don't need a Mont Blanc. Nobody needs a Mont Blanc, much like nobody needs a Mont Grappa, much like nobody needs a Visconti, much like nobody needs a Pelican. So, you can't look at it like that. You can't look at it as why do I have it? Because at the end of the day, the writing experience isn't so different that it's going to blow your mind away. Don't get me wrong. It's great. There are so many incredible Mont Blanc pens, but so are there many other brands. So you can't look at it in as much as, right, you've got to convince me because I think it's bad. How can you tell me it's good? My answer to him was, look, I'll loan you a 144, write with it for 2 weeks, see what you think. If you don't like it, send it back. If you like it, we'll talk about it. Because people have to have it in front of them. People have to see. You have to get past this kind of the idea of this devil brand where, God, no, people almost don't like to like them because you read things like, no, you mustn't like it or whatever. So I've sent him this 144 and he's going to write with it for 2 weeks, and it's fine. I don't mind. Look, at the end of the day, if he comes back and says it's nice, but it's not for me, no problem. But I think part of my role in what I do is just to show people that it's a pen to be enjoyed. At the end of the day, the reason that we're all here, and God, there's so many people. This is mildly terrifying. It's lucky I can only see about 4 or 5 on screen at one time. But the reason we're all here is because we love pens. Some of us might own Mont Blancs. Some of you might have never owned a Mont Blanc before. When I put a question out onto the group a while ago when we said we were doing this. I said, I want it to be as useful as possible for people. So tell me what you want to know. And one person said, I need convincing because I've never bought one. Why should I buy one? And that's it. People are here because they love pens. They want to know. And that's really, really important. We're a wonderful community. And I think sometimes that gets forgotten because we buy our pens, you know, we're kind of, it's such a virtual world. You know, we post photos up, we post things up, but it's so nice. And especially this year, when we've spent so much time inside or on our computers or whatever, it's so nice to actually be in front of people and actually talking to people. Because at the end of the day, we share this huge passion for pens. My business just happens to be centered around Mont Blanc, but it's a pen at the end of the day, much like a Mercedes is a car, the same as a Fiat is a car. I know it's different, and I do get that. I'm a big car fan, so I get that. But they are pens. It's a pen just in a different shape with a different nib made by a different company. But we should celebrate it. We shouldn't kind of look at specific manufacturers and single them out because we think it's overpriced, we think it's whatever. And so much of tonight is really putting over to you. I will answer as many questions as I can because I know from, in fact, I think it's partly because we've all been locked up so much this year that I can get on a phone call to a customer and the poor person's still there 2 hours later and I'm wondering if they've hung up because I'm still talking about it. So a lot of tonight is over to you really, and that's really important. There was one question which I did remember from the question I'd originally asked, and that was about servicing, and something that people often say to me: why do Mont Blanc make it so difficult to fix their pens? I think I'm back. Can everyone hear me now? Good.
Yeah, sorry, it was my fault.
What are you, Bernardo? I've told you not to get involved. Okay, this is my hour. You've got to listen. Okay,
I was letting people in.
When we talk tomorrow, you can claim there's technical difficulties, whatever. But yeah, one of the questions that came up recently was why do they make it so difficult to service them? And I think people have this perception that Mont Blanc almost build in this bit inside that one day you're going to try and use it and it'll break, and it's because they want your service revenue. Don't get me wrong, a part of their business is service revenue. I know that because if there are pens that I can't solve or I can't fix, they go off to Hamburg, and that's a fact. But at the same time, they're not designed to break. They're really not. If you look, this is a Mont Blanc piston mechanism here. It's not a complicated beast. It really isn't. If we take it apart, it's that part, and then that. It's not a complicated beast. So they don't inherently make it difficult. Essentially, they protect their brand, and they do that because they know there is service revenue, but at the same time, they're protecting it so that people don't try and tear their pens apart too much. It can be done. You can buy tools online. Anyone can take a piston out of a pen. If you've got a 146, you've got a 149, anything with a piston in the Meistership range, you could go on eBay now and spend £20 on a piston removal tool, and if you're careful, you can sort it. So it's not inherently built in to be difficult. It really isn't. It's a case of, I think people almost feel like there's some sort of trick that somehow it's gonna break just because it's reached a certain. I think it's a bit like the iPhone thing when people found out they slowed them down. I think people think that Mont Blanc pens essentially one day you turn the piston and it breaks. It's the same with every other pen. Look after it. Make sure it's rinsed out. Make sure it's washed. Make sure that it's not left for 18 months with the same ink in. And if it feels like the piston's stiff, just don't push it. That's the big thing. If it feels like it's not right, just don't push it. But at the same time, there's not an inherent design issue. I think maybe where that comes from is if you look back at the pens, the older pens, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, you'd have to have one in front of you and compare it to a new pen. But they have something about them. They have this thickness of material, this warmth, this kind of tank-like build. But I think that's just a change in the world we live in. I don't think suddenly they've kind of made them deliberately brittle. I think it's just a case of, yeah, the old ones are built like tanks. This 60s 149 came to us about 6 weeks ago. And the customer that it came from hadn't used it for ages. We gave it a clean, we gave it an ultrasonic clean, we took various bits out, and it was fine, straight away, done. But sometimes if you find a modern pen that's been left that long and you just try and turn the piston, it will go. But that's because, yeah, it's sat there for a long, long time. Anyway, who's got Thomas has got a 144 in pieces on his desk right now. God, this is impressive. I haven't got anything in pieces on my desk right now. I've just got complete pens. Nice, but yeah, and that's the thing, Thomas. Like it's not overly difficult. It really isn't. Same with all, a lot of these. That's an Agatha Christie. It's pretty much exactly the same piston. You can use the same tool to remove the piston on that as you can the 149, as you can on the Jules Verne. It's not overly complicated. I think that it's that thing where it almost feels like it is, or that it should be, but it really isn't. I'm not saying everyone should suddenly go out and try and take their pens apart, but at the same time, if you're sensible, you can do your own servicing. It's not a problem. It really isn't. It's maybe the lack of availability of spare parts that's more of an issue rather than actually looking after it in the first place. Anyway, I'm going to keep quiet for just a second and see whether we have a first question from anyone. I've got a lot more to say. I warn you. You can, if you claim you've got technical difficulties and you need to head off and go and have a break, it's fine. It's not a problem. But I thought I'd open the floor to people and just see whether there is a question that somebody has, and we'll kind of take it from there and then crack on. If nobody has a question, this is going to get very embarrassing.
Let me start. You guys can. There is a function to raise hand, and I will unmute you as soon as you raise your hand, so I can allow you guys to ask your question. Please ask questions, because I ask questions directly to Roy all the time, and he's more than happy to answer them. So
yeah, no, and it doesn't matter what it really doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. We don't have to discuss, the feed construction of a pre-war pen. It can be anything. Even what model you suggest. Where do I start? What do I buy first?
Yeah. Okay, Andrew. Yeah, okay. Andrew, you can unmute yourself now.
Hi, Roy. Just
a
quick question about the 149 calligraphy.
Yes.
Do you feel that, have you seen any of them in the used market yet? And if not, do you think that would be a good indicator to whether or not Mont Blanc would actually continue doing that 149 calligraphy line into maybe other limited editions in the future?
It's a really good question. It really is. There aren't that many as yet, I'd say, in the secondary market, not in comparison to standard offerings. And clearly that makes sense because it's been produced for a far shorter time, and obviously it has a more limited appeal. I've used a few of them, and they've all been great writers, and they all offer something that little bit different. I think to see them move into other models, we'll have to see more of an adoption from a wider part of the market. It's really difficult because for us, it's a really important pen, and it's something that people cry out for. But at the same time, it's a very, very niche offering. Most Mont Blanc customers wouldn't understand I don't mean that in a kind of derogatory way, but they wouldn't understand the reason why. Why would you want the flex nib? Why would you want something that go from an EF to a double broad? But the response to it has been really good, and customers that I've kind of sourced them for have loved them. So I think it will continue. I think maybe it's the start of an evolution where you see Mont Blanc moving slightly away from the kind of linear when it comes to the 149. You only have to look how long they only ever did gold-plated trims for. Decades and decades and decades. Early on in iZods, we used to get 149 trims replated in ruthenium because none of the other options exist. There wasn't the platinum one, there wasn't the red gold one. And so we got customers asked for replated nibs and replated trims, and so we worked with a company and did kind of dark ruthenium, a bit like, oh God, it won't come up very well, but the same sort of color as on that Star Walker, and people loved it. But it was only because the offering wasn't there. If you wanted a 149, you had yellow gold, that was it. And I think Mont Blanc responded to that by offering platinum trim and red gold trim. And I do think, although the kind of calligraphy flex nibs are probably even more niche, I think we'll start to see that little bit more movement away. Interesting options. They might still not be part of, you know, a bigger, wider model range, but I think we'll see more of it because they understand that today's fountain pen user is probably more interested in options and in writing experiences than maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. So yeah, I think maybe so. If I hear anything interesting, I'll let you know. But I definitely think it will lead to new and interesting additions to the lineup in the next few years, certainly, yeah.
Right. Jose, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
I've been curious, and I've seen this online. What's the reasoning or the reason behind the changes in the, for example, in the 149 from 14K to 18K and back and forth about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating one because, yeah, I mean, as you know, they've chopped and changed so much over the years. They've even had it where 18K, you know, was in for a couple of years, and then I think maybe it's in response to Mont Blanc are one of these really interesting companies where they're huge, but they do try and make something that's as appealing as possible for as many people as possible. And that's not to kind of belittle the technical aspects of it, but it's almost a bit like, I mean, I used to work in the wine trade, and going off in a slight tangent, but it's relevant. When Veuve Clicquot or Moët & Chandon or Bollinger make their non-vintage, they want it to be consistent, whether you buy it in 2020 or whether you come to it a year later, you try it, because people know the style that they like. And so I think what Mont Blanc have tried to do, a bit like moving away from Ebonite Feeds, what they've tried to do is create something that offers as good a writing experience for as many people as possible. And the Ebonite Feed thing was a really interesting one as well, because they used to use, as you probably know, Ebonite Feeds on the 149 up until the early plastic ones in the kind of very early 90s. And they moved away from them, I think, because they offered a wetter writing style, which a lot of people liked. But when it became a more commercial product, you couldn't have something that would offer a wetter writing style but would dry slower, so that the average person that might not be a kind of collector, they then go to turn a page and it smudges the page. They had to create something that was not a dumbed down version of it, but it was something that more people could use. Because if the person that aspired to own a 149 but hadn't ever owned a fountain pen before, bought it, and then they found it was smudging all the time, or that it was whatever, they go, oh God, this isn't very good. So it is a difficult balancing act for them. And I think that's where, you know, on one hand, I'm sure they'd like to appeal all the time to the enthusiast. But if they do that, they lose the goodwill and the market share of the everyday person who wouldn't come to an event like this because they buy a 149. It's no disrespect. They buy a 149 because they want a Mont Blanc fountain pen and they love writing with it, but they don't then immerse themselves in the world of Mont Blanc. So I think they've chopped and changed to find something that suits, find something that offers reasonable feedback, that offers a smooth writing experience, but that is appealing to as many people as possible. You know, if you go down their Mont Blanc bespoke nib service, they can go mad. They can do all sorts of incredible things for you. But obviously you pay the bill for it. But it's incredible. I've got some customers that send me photos of stuff they've had created or that they've had it tweaked to say, and it's amazing. But yeah, the standard medium 149 nib has to be a please all nib, really. It really. So although it doesn't answer your question in a technical way, that is really the reason. I think it's making it a crowd pleaser. It really is.
Makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Right, Sandeep, you raised your hand before. Helen, are you there? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Had to
Okay,
go and
cool.
answer a GP query on my computer, but there we go. No, my question was a little bit around 14K and 18K nibs, because I've got experience of modern Mont Blanc pens. And, you know, I've only really started acquiring Mont Blanc pens in the last 3 or 4 years, and had lots of other makes before that. I find the 18K modern nibs stiffer than some of the 14K modern nibs to write with. I do enjoy them, but I just wonder, Roy, your experience of older Mont Blanc nibs, and why. You've answered a lot of the question in the previous question, but the difference between the older nibs and the modern 14K and 18K nibs in terms of writing experience and what they offer.
Yeah, no, it's lovely to see you, Sandeep. I hope you're well. Yeah, I mean, the very simple answer to this is wind back the clock as far as you can with a 149. This one, for instance, that I've got on my desk has got an 18C tritone nib. It's glorious. At the end of the day, I mean, this, I think I'm not punting eyes on at all, but we've got this up at about exactly the same price as a new 149. I get why people buy new 149s, but this, if you want something with greater levels of feedback, something that I never like to say they're flexible nibs, because they're not nibs that you can push and they're flex, but they have that bounce. And I think it's a combination of the nib and the feed. But really, with 149s, go back as far as you reasonably can and budget will allow. You know, you don't have to go crazy. The kind of 60s, 70s pens, even the 80s 149s are great. They are definitely stiffer these days, definitely. But I think you don't have to wind the clock back that far to see that element of bounce. Unless you go back to the celluloid pens and the early 60s ones, you're never going to get something that has kind of that amazing, not flex, but that if you wrote with it, I'm half tempted to send you one so you can just have a go, because you need to write with it to understand the difference. But it's literally, the further you go back, the better it is. For anyone that wants to kind of compare, if people are looking for 149s and you're looking kind of independently, so rather than speaking to someone about it, there's a great chart online. If you Google Mont Blanc 149 chart, the first one that will come up is someone who created this chart of all the nib types, all the feed types, all the different bits that signify when a pen was made. And that's really helpful, because if you're trawling through eBay, you might actually just stumble across something that's a lot older than the person thinks it is, because they've inherited it from someone, or they got given it as a gift. And so I to you, Sandeep, I'd say, just go as old as you can. You don't have to go back to celluloid, but 60s, 70s, early 80s.
I have to say that my needlepoint 149 with a 3-ton 18K nib is stunning, and it's completely different than the 146 that I got, the UNICEF 146 that you got for me, that I got from you, and because it's a modern 2017 nib, but my God, that needlepoint is just
it is. And that says a lot, because from an EF or an F to get that, you're not writing with a double broad or something, kind of big and fat, and you've got essentially something tiny there, but yet to still get that experience shows how good they are. And I think again, it's because it's partly because it didn't cater to the masses. So just find as old as you can, really do.
That's great. I mean, for the modern ones, I've ranges from oblique mediums to oblique broads. I've got more 146s, and I've got a JFK, and even the one that and even the one that Bernardo hates, the Disney one. I've got that one.
I think that's not only me, but Walt Disney would hate that pen as well. Because
I use it as a lethal weapon. It's great because I buy these pens to use. I don't use them to sit in the box. So
I use every single of my pens. Yeah.
So I it's a pen you can hit somebody with, and it won't be damaged. So but my kids love it. I love getting them involved with fountain pens. My son's dyspraxic and left-handed, and my daughter has some issues, and they really enjoy their fountain pens. And it's just a way, and I let them even occasionally use one of my 146s. And
brave man.
But I use the cheaper BMW model for that. They're allowed to use that one. They can't use the other one.
They're really good value. Those BMW 146s are really good value for anyone that wants a new 146 but doesn't mind about a very discreet 7 or a bit on the clip. It's a bargain compared to the standard 146. It really is.
Yeah.
Nice to see someone's put in the chat the link to that chart. By the way, it's a really good chart.
But I am going to do one last bit of heresy, and this year I acquired my first Pelican M1000, and so that is different. It's totally different.
They're great pens. Yeah, they're brilliant pens. They are. Yeah. So I don't blame you. We just won't talk about it when we next have a chat about pens. Okay.
Right.
All right. Great. A big thank you to Roy. Really appreciate the service and the wonderful stuff you do for us. I really appreciate it. And thanks,
entirely.
Right, Helen, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. So, Roy, yes, I was the one that needed convincing. So my question is, so if I was to buy a first Mont Blanc, what would you suggest that I would look at? I mostly tend to go for broader nibs and what have you. I don't like fine nibs. So suggestions on a postcard, please.
The pen the Mont Blanc pen that I always think is massively underrated. You've got if you don't like the traditional black and gold scheme, then that's out the window. You don't like that. Okay, right. My suggestion then is go for a Star Walker. Honestly, go for it. I know it's not fun because it's cartridge only. You can get converter that fits in it. Mont Blanc never tell you that, but I can get you a converter that fits in it. But go for a Star Walker. They're really reliable. They're great writers. You can leave one sat for a while, pick it up, and it'll write beautifully. And I'm not going to say that you're going to get it and go, oh, why would I ever own another pen? But they're really good, and they come in so many different colors and color combinations. And
now color is good.
Well, there's a version called the Cool Blue, which wasn't produced for very long, but it's got a kind of almost like a translucent blue lacquer, and they look fantastic. And the great thing about that is if you find one at a good price, you can use it for 6 months, a year. If you decide to sell it, you can pretty much sell it for what you bought it for, because people like it. They're not made anymore and people like them. But yeah, it's really difficult because you're in the same boat as many people where they say to me, you have got to convince me. And I can't tell you that it will change your writing world, because it won't. But if you get one that you like, it's a brilliant pen and it will go on for ages and ages. And often what you find with people with Mont Blanc is they'll buy one and then it will go from there. And so, but it's true. I'm not saying you're gonna suddenly have to explain to all your friends and family why your spare room is full of Mont Blanc pens. But there is something about them that is really enjoyable.
I think
And
the thing that has put me off is the fact that so many of them, and please excuse me, people, I apologise at this point, but they just look like boring black blokes' pens.
that's fine, because I understand that, because I think because the world of pens has changed, and it's now not just traditional black resin and gold trim, and there's nothing wrong with that, because some people, that's what they love, and that's perfect, that's fine. But it's changed. We get so many colors and so many vibrant resins and so many things with shimmers in and amazing trim combinations. People want something that they feel offers them not only value for money, but excites them. So when you buy it, you're excited and you keep staring through the letterbox waiting for it to turn up. But that's what you want. That's what I say to people. Don't buy a pen, regardless of whether it's a Mont Blanc or not, unless you're going to be waiting for me to tell you what the tracking number is. Because
Yeah.
it's a bit like when I worked in the wine trade. I used to talk to customers who would and ah about wines for ages and ages and ages and different vintages and everything, and that was important, because it's a bit like the pen world. It's very important to understand these things. But at the end of the day, if you enjoy it, it's a good wine. If you enjoy it, it's a good pen. If you don't enjoy it, to you, that's not a good pen. Sell it on, move it on. But you shouldn't not choose a brand just because what people say or whatever. If you enjoy it, it's brilliant. But you have to find one that excites you. I will happily work with you, and I will send you one as a tester. If you hate it, I don't care, because at least you've tried it.
Yeah.
Don't forget the Petit Prince as well.
Yeah.
The Saint-Exupéry. They are wonderful pens.
Yeah.
146s, so piston fillet and colorful.
Okay.
You have to dig deeper. I think because people think of Mont Blanc and they think of black and gold. But if you dig deeper, even Mont Blanc understand now. If you Google their website and you look at it, clearly you get the classic ones, but there's so many colors now. The Star Walkers have changed. They're bright, they're blue. They've changed the top on it, so it's not just clear resin. It's got like a bit that's supposed to look looking at the Earth from space. It's all about color. It's all about vibrancy and being individual. And so
I'm going to have to talk to you, obviously.
Have a chat, and
Okay.
and yeah, I will help convince you. And if I can't, then hey, at least we tried.
Thank you.
Okay, Thomas, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Hi. I've got a question to do with some of the older models that aren't made anymore, and I was wondering why, because I'm aware that they used to make kind of like studenty pens, and I've used a 24 and a 32, and these are so good, and they could very, very easily compete in the market against, like, you know, Lamy Safari. If they really wanted to, you know, you get a pen for like 50 quid off eBay, and it's a piston filler with a really nice tip. And I was just wondering why they don't do that anymore, because I would love to see what a modern 32 would look like, you know, with flat ends.
I entirely agree, and I'm with you on this. But I think you have, and in fact, I've got various ones on my desk that arrived today. So I've got an old Noblesse, and I've got a 220, a Macroloid.
Oh, those are great, yeah.
And they're brilliant pens, and they are, and they're relatively inexpensive. They'll last forever, and they're great looking pens. I think what happened was, and it really started when kind of Dunhill had ownership, and then it moved on to Richemont, is they cut out the lower range pens because they were focusing on premium. And I think I can understand it in one way, because it made the message simpler, but they had so many different variations. The 12, the 221, the 221p, the 220. There were so many pens that existed, and so many tiny details that change model numbers. And I think it was confusing. So what they did was they kept the heart of it, the Meisterstück range, and they brought in complementary ranges at a higher price point because they realized that they had a brand that people would buy into and that people would spend more on it. So really, I'd suggest it's more about them building the brand than it is about there ever being, you know, oh, they're bad pens, or because they're not, they're brilliant. And as you say, if you look on eBay, you can pick up absolute bargains because people have never heard of half these older 70s, 80s models. And even if they've been abused for years, a quick clean will normally pretty much sort them out. Like this, the 220 here, that hadn't been used for a year. I gave it a quick wash with an ultrasonic cleaner, and everything about it, I mean, the piston is like perfect, the nib's perfect, everything is. So I think the demise of them wasn't because of a kind of model issue. I think it was because the lineup became too complicated and they became more premium rather than offering everything. They moved the brand upwards, and that sadly meant the demise of the kind of lower value pens. Sadly, that's the truth of it.
That's the truth. I just got started in Mont Blanc because my dad gave me his old slim line, and I love it.
Brilliant. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
no,
my favorite Mont Blanc.
You should look at, get as many of the 70s and 80s pens as you can, because they are bargains and they will last you forever. And yeah, there's so many interesting bits out there that, you know, that just don't get seen because we don't talk about it. But I if people get in touch and want to sell any of those pens to me, I buy them all because I know that people will love them and I know that there's a good market for them. But yeah, definitely enjoy them as many as you can. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer.
My pleasure.
I think Emil was trying to ask a question as well. And just as a reminder before Emil asks his question, just remember everyone, please send an email to 12 Days of Fountain Pens. It's right in the top of the chat, but I'm gonna send it again. Okay, so it's 12 Days of Fountain Pens at .io. Yep, that's it. You have 5 minutes to send an email to this email, and I'm gonna draw 3 winners from that, and you guys gonna know who won. Please don't forget to write on the subject Robert Oster Citrus ink or something like that. And 5 minutes, and I'm gonna ask Roy to announce them.
Ooh. Okay. I'll just say it's me. I'll send 3 emails and just win them all, Bernardo.
Okay, Roy, actually, this follows.
It's on the chat. Oh, I sent it. Oh, sorry, I sent it to someone instead of sending to everyone. Sorry. Oh yeah, thanks, Andrew. You don't. That's no problem. If the subject line says citrus or anything else, just please. It's just as a reminder to me that when I see, you know, because this is going to be the email that's going to be used for every day. So yeah, just as a reminder for myself.
What do you want to be reminded about?
I need to mute Siri as well. Right. Okay, Emil is still there. Do you want to ask your question?
This follows on very closely from Tom's question, because I have a Mont Blanc 12. When were they made? And, you know, I think it's an excellent pen, apart from a slightly stiff piston. But are they easy to service ourselves?
They're more difficult if the piston's really tight, as in you can't get any more, you can't get any water in to clean it. No, the reality is, if you can give it to start a really good soak in water nib end, I'd always suggest like a ramekin or something like that. Lay it in and just leave it overnight, and just try and kind of, the more you flush them through, there's 2 ways it'll go. The more you flush them through, it'll either stiffen up, but more likely it'll loosen up. And the reality is, as long as it's not kind of, you feel like you're going to wrench it off, then it will be fine. They're more difficult to service because the standard tools that you can buy online aren't really built for those. So you'd have to send it into Hamburg. Mont Blanc servicing isn't that bad. It's the standard level 1 service cost is about £60, £65. I'm not saying you do, but for that, I mean, to give you an example, it's not a vintage pen, but we often send batches of pens off to them, and we had a 146 platinum trim that came back the other day on a level 1 service at £60. They replaced the cap and the barrel and the piston cone, so you've essentially got a new pen. So people, you should, if it gets really bad and really stiff and you can't solve, it would be worth, you know, sending it in and getting it done, because then you've got, you know, 20, 30 years of happy writing after that. But yeah, just a good soak. In fact, my tip to anyone would be to buy an ultrasonic cleaner. You can buy them on Amazon. They don't have to be expensive, because they will get dry ink out of nibs and feeds and everything, and they are brilliant. You know, we obviously use them, and we use kind of, you know, more industrial ones, but if you buy a Breezer one, it's like £25-30 on Amazon, and they will sort a pen out in no time at all. So if you've got a pen that hasn't been used for ages and you want to give it a really good clean before you put it away, or you want to use it again, just hold it in the ultrasonic cleaner, and it's fascinating because all the ink just kind of go, and my cat sits and stares at it, and sometimes drinks from it, which is a bit worrying. But yeah, sorry, I've gone off piece, haven't I? But anyway, yeah, if it gets really bad, let me know and I'll take a look at it for you and see if I can sort it.
Okay, thanks.
No worries.
Right, everyone. Okay, so I have 57 emails. Okay.
Can we have like a lock-in after this? Or so I feel like an
Yeah,
hour.
yeah.
I'm just getting started, Bernard. I'm going to be here till about 3 o'clock in the morning. I've got after the golf course has opened, I played golf at 6:30 this morning, and I've got another tea time at 10 to 7 tomorrow. So I may as well just carry on. My golf club's in the car, and we'll just crack on.
So okay, the last email was received at 5 to 10, and I'm going to 1 minute. Okay, all cookies. Okay, but let me write down the numbers and I'm gonna send them to you. Okay, Roy? Through Messenger.
On Messenger.
Okay.
This feels quite important. Can I do this? Can I just make a guest appearance at all of these and just read out the winners, please? Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Have you sent them to me?
I'm sending now.
Oh yeah.
I need to, count them.
Have we got an independent adjudicator as well?
That's me.
Is it your Alexa?
Yeah.
Just trying to see if there's any questions on chat that I've missed. That
there's many.
There's loads. God.
Yeah.
This is an all-nighter. People are going to get some bargains tomorrow because they'll ring me up after I've been up all night and played golf, and I'll completely forget what the price of everything is, and all the 149s will be about £100 on the website. I saw a question, in fact, not quite, but a kind of a bit about the Bohem come up on the chat, and that's a really good recommendation for anyone starting on Mont Blanc that wants something a little bit different. Most of them have the retractable nib mechanism, and they come in mostly black resin, although there are kind of solitaire versions in silver and various other bits and steel caps, but they're really worth looking at. I don't know why they discontinued them, because they were great pens, and if you look well on eBay or wonderful independent resellers, such as someone I know, then you can find them. But yeah, Bohems are definitely worth looking at. Oh, I've got names. This is good. Do you want me to wait
The
until I've
last
got
one?
all three?
Yeah. I'm sending you the last one now.
I can see you're typing. This is anticipation. Oh no, you've just let
Da,
us
da,
see.
da.
Come on, Bernardo, don't hold up the third name. I'm itching to tell people.
Okay, done.
Wonderful. So can I read out the three names, the three
Yeah, sure.
winners?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the three lucky winners are Louise Brooks.
Yay!
Random. God, people, I know it's late, but come on. Lucy Bennett.
Yay!
And apologies if I pronounce his name wrong, which is bad coming from someone with a very long surname because I should know names. Naisha Keynes Douglas.
Yay! Nice one. You please send me an email to the same email with your address. I'm going to reply to that email as well. But yeah, send me your address and I will mail the inks to you on Saturday, please, because you know it's the easiest day to go to the post office.
Well done, everyone. Right, are there more questions? I feel like we're kind of doing quite well now, so I'm here for as long as people want. If you tell me to go now because it's 10, that's fine. But I'm here for as long as people need me. So if there are more questions, then feel free.
I have one. Hi, Roy.
Hi, Phil.
I do own a Mont Blanc. I only own one of them, and I bought it second hand in a, well, calling it an antique shop would be too grand, but it would have liked to have been an antique shop, and it's called a Rosa.
Oh yeah.
Which I had to Google, and it was sold originally as a student pen. Here it is, in fact. I went to the cupboard to find it earlier. It's got a tiny little nib on it. It's probably, in today's terminology, that would be probably a size 4 or something. It's a student pen. It was always sold as a cheap pen, but the nib on it, I haven't got another camera set up to show you. The nib on it flexes really by looking at it. You've just got to look at this nib and it will flex. I don't have the writing skills to get the best out of it, or anything like the best out of it. But my question really is that, because this is you may know, I don't know, I can't remember. I think this is sort of 1950s vintage.
Yeah, they kind of made them from there, and then later on, and then cut them out. But they were made for a relatively long period of time.
Right, but I've got nothing to suggest that this is not the nib that would have originally been supplied with it. It was a student pen. It is ultra flexible. Why, given that the market today has a goodly demand for flex nibs and the market doesn't supply it, doesn't meet the need, why did they phase that kind of nib out, and why don't they sort of come back to it?
I think it's difficult because I think we have to look at it from the kind of wider Mont Blanc market. I think for us and for the enthusiast end of things, there is a demand for nibs like that. Hence why they brought in an idea of it, the calligraphy, the flex nib. But I think for most people, there isn't a demand for it, to be honest. Most people don't know even that flex nib is it. The average Mont Blanc user wouldn't worry about it. They'll buy a medium or they'll buy a broad if they like something. And I think there is a demand, but it's a bit like if you often see it on the forums, people calling for a reincarnation of the 139 because it's such a famous Mont Blanc pen, and people say they should bring it back. They should definitely bring it back. And for the enthusiasts, it's such a small part of it. So if they did bring it back, for most people, they wouldn't understand the historical importance of it, and they wouldn't be concerned about it. They might like the look of it. And I think it's the same with these nibs. I think it will be more, and I think over the next few years you will see it more because other manufacturers are doing it, and Mont Blanc aren't going to leave themselves behind. But I don't think there's enough of a demand to make it to make it a bigger part of the business as yet. I think maybe as it evolves, you'll see it more, but I think they'll retain it for flagship models because it gives them a reason to have a 149 with a different nib and charge more for it.
It's a USP for sure, but why did they leave it behind in the first place? Is that because demand? I mean, I don't know the history of these things, but did demand just disappear for the sort of super flex?
I think it's when they moved the brand to a more corporate identity, and it's a bit like I was saying earlier. They kind of lost the bits that were at the edges effectively, and created something that was more uniform in its style and something that you could buy at the Mont Blanc boutique in Canary Wharf, and if you've never used a Mont Blanc pen before and love it, or and I think what happened was, a lot of the kind of more interesting bits got pushed aside because if you probably took a survey of 100 people, the majority of them wouldn't say, I loved it because the nib was super flexible or it was whatever, because they wouldn't have the knowledge to understand that. They just say it writes nicely. And so I think all the kind of, in a way, the color was lost, and they created something that was still an excellent creature, but it was a more linear creature. And I think we'll start to see it come back. And I'm not saying you'll get to the stage where you have all sorts of different models with all sorts of variations and nibs. You've only got to look at, if you do a quick eBay search for 149s or 146s, the vast majority of them are mediums or fines. It's rare to see an oblique double broad or an oblique broad or something interesting. Or, we had in the other week one of the Kugel nibs from the nib testing kits. And they're lovely, but they abandoned it before it even became a thing. You could buy them. You could buy a 145 with a Kugel nib, but nobody was interested, so they binned it off. So most people would probably never even realise it was an option because they kind of put it out there, but nobody bought it. So you'll only find them in those tester kits and they've got S written on the barrel. And I think that's it. Yeah, they kind of realised that the tooling costs and all the bits to keep this massive array of nibs and people weren't bothered. I think maybe I do think we'll see more colour return, but I don't think there's as much demand as we'd think maybe there would be. I think most people just wouldn't even understand the concept of it unless it was explained to them.
Right.
So
Right.
Sadly, that's the case.
Let's get the last question from John, and we're gonna wrap it up. Okay.
Cool.
Unmute yourself, John.
You do that. Hey, Roy.
Hey, John.
I started out with a 220 on my wish list, and that is why I kind of went to grab the pen case.
Yeah.
I really wanted the one with it's like the kind of white gold nib and the white gold trim.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely lovely. Anyway, in the end, I ended up with this 22, which is absolutely superb. And I bought that secondhand from SBRE Brown, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And all it cost me was €75.
Mm-hmm.
And it is absolutely superb. I mean, so if you want a cheap kind of starter Mont Blanc, these smaller 60s pens, they're absolutely amazing. This one's got an oblique broad on it, which is absolutely stunning. And of course, once you kind of post it, it becomes a perfectly usable pen.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a little bit on the small side, unposted. But yeah, I mean, as you say, if you're stocking a range of those kind of lower end kind of vintage ones, absolutely superb place to start. They're just fabulous quality. I mean, everyone who tries this says, wow, about the nib. It's so nice. It's lovely. You just don't have to spend a fortune. You don't have to spend the kind of £700 on the 149 kind of flagship to get a really lovely experience. So
I entirely agree. We mustn't forget these old models. It's sometimes difficult to navigate because there's lots of different numbers and versions and everything. But you can't really go wrong with them. But buy something you like the look of and something that's not so expensive that if you don't like it, you can just resell it for for a reasonable amount. Just experiment, try some of these bits and see what you like. It's all part of the fun of it, isn't it? Regardless of whether it's Mont Blanc or if it's whatever brand it is, it's the fun of trying things and seeing trying this wonderful world of pens. So yes, I entirely agree, John.
Thanks, Roy.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Okay, please, the girls that won, or guys, I don't know if there was, people that won the inks, please email me to the email or send me a message on Facebook with your address, and I will send the inks to you with a certificate straight from Robert Oster, with a certificate of authenticity, proving that you have an exclusive first edition ink.
Fantastic.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Roy. Thank you very much.
Can I nab 30 seconds?
Sure, definitely.
Literally just 30 seconds. And for me, this is really important. And the thing with Mont Blanc is that there are so many for sale in the secondary market, and you should you can stumble across a nightmare. You can buy a nightmare on eBay or whatever, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go and seek out a bargain. Don't be afraid. And clearly, I'm not saying don't come to me, because I will happily chat to anyone, but there's something lovely about going to a boutique and buying a new pen. But you can spend, if you've always wanted a 146, but you don't want to spend £500 odd, there are so many for sale online that have been very lightly used or never used, or whatever. There are so many, and you don't have to go in and buy brand new. I'm not saying buy from me. I'm just saying you can find bargains if you look, and you don't even have to look that carefully. If you buy through eBay, just buy well, and if there's a problem with it, you're safe anyway. But just enjoy it. It's lovely to have all the kind of bits and all the bits that go with it, but you can still enjoy virtually the same experience and buy secondhand. You really can. And thank you to everyone. It's amazing to have seen so many people. As I say, I thought a combination of the Man U game and I'm a Celebrity would have finished us off, and you've lasted well. I talk a lot. I'm always available for a talk. If you get bored, just ring me up. Numbers on the website. So I'm sat at this desk, mate. I can't even go and see customers at the moment. I'm sat at this desk with cats, 3 cats, and they come and hassle me all day. So for God's sake, save me. But no, it's a play, and it's a real honour to have been asked by Bernardo, and it's lovely to see so many faces. And it's just, it's great. And I hope everyone has as good a Christmas as is humanly possible, and we all kind of look forward to a better 2021. But this community we have is a joy, and I'm very fortunate that my full-time job is immersed in it. And thank you to everyone for making what we do such an enjoyable and colourful world.
Cool. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.